There's a joy in being a student that I think gets lost in a lot of today's schooling. Maybe not for all people, but certainly for some. Specifically looking at middle and high school, perhaps this dread many students feel has got to do with the incredible number of classes, the ungodly waking hours, the stressful exams, the difficult task of balancing social, academic, leisure, and personal life, or the growing complexity of modern demands. Some people can handle all that happily, but some, like myself, really struggled. Regardless, the direction humans seem to innovate at is only going upward. And as students, it's a competitive race to the top to continuously learn and improve. And if you want to measure a society's success by its technological advancement, especially in medicine, then we're achieving that in leaps and bounds. However, despite this, there seems to be a pandemic of loneliness and depression in America, especially in our younger demographic. And I do wonder what role our schooling system plays. Students and even family members I know personally seem to be more stressed than ever, specifically because of the worries they have from classes. I don't see an easy solution to dealing with the increasing stressors that students endure when the world is only getting harder and more competitive. It's like we've reached late game for humanity. And one such stressor is the dreaded question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whether you're from fortunate or unfortunate circumstances, it's a question that holds an unbelievable amount of weight. And having to consider the number of things that you could be is overwhelming. Which is why I find fascination in Mushoku Tensei, or Jobless Reincarnate. Jobless Reincarnate is naturally about a jobless, hopeless man in Japan that wastes away in his room playing video games by himself. His combo game do be sick though. Holy shit. He hated school, was heavily bullied, and lived as a 34-year-old NEET. For the longest time, he felt like his life had no purpose. That is, until during a walk, he was able to push a girl out of the way of a truck to only be hit himself and killed. Here it comes. He gets isekai'd and is reborn with all his memories of his previous life into a loving family as Rudius Grey Rat. A good portion of the early bit of the show is watching Rudius slowly get acclimated to his new circumstances. Instead of harsh, judgmental parents, in this world they're open-minded and kind. Instead of being bullied and living as a loner, he fends off bullies and makes a new friend. Instead of a normal world, he's put into a magical one. During his time in this world, Rudius learned stuff like how to read, or observe the sales market, or teach basic arithmetic. I'm getting to the interesting bit, I swear. If you looked at Rudius at face value, you would think that in his previous life, he was a pretty successful, happy person. After all, look at how studious, meticulous, and hardworking he is. He taught himself how to read, learned magic on his own, consistently practiced, and even teaches. What a great role model. So the question I present today is this. How? How does a man that was once isolated, depressed, and so disgusting to the point of jerking off at home as his parents' funeral was going on, rise to the occasion to become a competent mage, capable of helping others in life or death situations? The answer is this: better relationships and more constraints on freedom. Hear me out, I know one of those sounds crazy. The first one is self-explanatory. Rudius' time in school was humiliating, and his family seemed distant. This new family and community he's in seems more welcoming, and to be surrounded by that environment is, of course, going to be very positive. Now let's get to the bit I wanted to talk about: constraints on freedom. There's a book called The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz. In it, he tries to help readers understand the relationship of human well-being and the choices we make. Schwartz, in an experiment, made the observation that when people were given a choice between types of jam they preferred, those that picked a favorite out of a smaller selection of jams were happier with their decision than those that picked a favorite out of a greater selection of jam. Those picking from a greater selection of jam, despite getting more precisely what they wanted in jam preference, seemed to be more likely to regret their decision and be less happy with it. In other words, too many choices made people unhappier because they kept worrying about whether or not they made the best choice. Having less choices made people happy with their decision since they were more concerned about how their selection made them feel, rather than if it was the best decision. The takeaway from these experiments seems to be that not enough choices is devastating, and too many choices is also detrimental. Pushing beyond consumerism, Schwartz believes that this paradox of choice extends to dating, education, occupation, housing, finances, and so much more. So, what's this got to do with Jobless Reincarnate? There seems to be a golden amount in the middle, where you have some options but not too many options. While deciding what to do with his newfound life, I believe that Rudius got the golden amount of choices to pick from. Not too many and not too few. If I was the old Rudius, the avid Redditor, Discord mod, hentai enthusiast, smelly Smash player, I'd initially be very bored in this fantasy world. No TV, no computers, no phones, no internet, no games, no money, no means of traveling. The things to do as an adult in a kid's body would be pretty dull. So, what choices does Rudius have as an adult in a toddler's body? Well, at the start, not very much. But I think the novelty and humor of the whole situation is enough to not be a big deal. And it's not like there's nothing to do. There's some books lying around to read. But more importantly, think of all the panties to raid. What is wrong with this show? Let's say we asked Rudius, what do you want to be when you grow up? It wouldn't be shocking for him to pick a job that relates to the community that he's in. He could be a farmer, a swordsman, or a mage. Not a lot of options to pick from. With the little skills he acquired early on from reading, Rudius pursues to be a mage and a teacher of magic. This pursuit almost just falls naturally on his lap. And just like that, Rudius has answered the dreadful question of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he chooses to be a mage and a teacher. This difficult question is made light by the constraints of his living circumstances. He lives in the countryside in a modest home with a swordsman and a mage with a few books, and that's all he needed. And I think these constraints are leading him down a healthier path. Rudius is happy. It's a simple life he's living, and merely the natural progression of someone curious or bored, tinkering with what's around them to pass the time. We don't see him pondering some unobtainable goal, nor some grandiose image of heroism, but instead we see a man getting through his day-to-days and continuing his slow march forward. To Rudius, less has been more. The constraints of his living situation has somehow given his life a level of direction. And even for someone that was once a lifeless, shut-in otaku, there was a place in the world for him. So, what is the takeaway of all this? What does it mean to us as viewers who live in a society rife with possibilities? Do we return to some simpler way of living where things aren't overwhelming? Well, it's complicated. At least from my privileged perspective, I think we're getting closer to reaching late game for humanity. In our pursuit for innovation and more, we're at the point of no return. Unfortunately, I don't think Barry Schwartz has the answers with what is to be done with the amount of choices we have in today's society. And I don't have the answers either. I'm just a guy fascinated by a silly isekai anime about this lonely otaku that becomes happy. And so I pass the question on to you. How do we not overwhelm ourselves in the seemingly infinite number of possibilities in our pursuit to optimize our lives? Do you think I'm making this into a bigger problem than it really is? Am I missing something obvious? And that's not a rhetorical question either. I'll literally be looking through the comments to hear your thoughts. Alright, I'm gonna peace out now. I'm sorry this video is ending on such a sour note. Jobless reincarnates got me feeling things. Hopefully the next video will be lighter. Take it easy, guys. Bye.